Hello everyone, this is the Lab 8 Comparative Anatomy slideshow by Alex, Hakeem, and Nolan. So with this lab, we're comparing the structures and forms of the rat and the frog, and by comparing these two, we'll learn about the evolutionary biology and anatomies of the different animals. In comparing the two, we can see from their taxa that they're both animals, obviously, but they're both chordates, but that's where the similarities end, because the rat, the brown or Norway rat, is a mammal, and Forr's grass frog is an amphibian, and from there they get more and more diversified to the species that they are today. In speaking of the frog, we'll start with the frog. Rana Ferrari, or Ferrari's grass frog, is relatively large, can grow up to 120 millimeters as an adult. It has smooth, spotted skin, a pointed snout, and well-developed dorsolateral folds on its sides. The body is divided, like most frogs, into the head, the trunk, and the tail. The tail, however, disappears once they become an adult. You know, like tadpoles will have the tail, but once they become an adult, they'll lose it. They have webbed feet, these frogs, because they swim. They need it for their swimming, and their strong legs are their rear legs. Their hind legs are a lot stronger because they've been adapted for leaping and jumping. Now, their skin is soft and thin and has a large network of blood vessels. The frog can use its skin for breathing and respiration because it's so thin, oxygen can actually flow through the skin. Now, frogs obviously live in aquatic habitats such as streams, ponds, or lakes, and during reproduction, the frogs will hang out near the water and attract mates using soft, low growls. And the way frogs mate is almost similar to fish in that the eggs are fertilized externally, and then they are deposited in the water. In terms of predation, frogs have a couple natural predators. They're preyed upon, especially as eggs and tadpoles. They're vulnerable to pretty much everything. And when they're adults, snakes will like to prey on them, among other animals of the same size. Interestingly, humans are also a big predator, as frog legs are a delicacy in many parts of the world. Now, when it comes to rats, the habitats for rats, their climate, it tends to be wherever humans go. Now, the brown rat, despite the name, is not indigenous to Norway. Scientists aren't sure exactly where they come from, but now they know that they're pretty much everywhere. They've spread all over the world except Antarctica, and they tend to live wherever humans live. And food, they'll eat whatever they can get their hands or their paws on. In terms of other factors limiting their development, their predators would be natural predators, things like hawks or snakes, and then also humans, because humans are probably the biggest predator these rats have. We do not like having them in our cities. And so things like rat poison, rat traps, and other measures, cats especially, are used to keep rat populations in check. In terms of the food chain, rats are primary consumers, as they don't typically prey on other animals, unlike frogs, which do. Now, frogs will prey on insects, making them secondary consumers. Rats tend to be scavengers. They'll just eat, like I mentioned, whatever they can find. And in terms of the rat's mating patterns and behavior, rats are not confined to a specific breeding pattern. Some are polygamous, some are monogamous, but they do have their mating displays and courtship rituals, common to many mammals. And the rat species are in synchronized estrus, so they breed at a certain point of the year, all rats. They have a seasonal breeding time. And rats, they'll take care of their children, they'll build nests, they'll explore, they'll forage. They're very social animals, but also very territorial.
Rats are highly adaptable rodents found in various habitats worldwide. Their ecological habitat can vary depending on the species, but generally, they thrive in environments with easy access to food, water, and shelter. For abiotic factors, climate. Rats can inhabit a wide range of climates, from temperate to tropical regions. They are particularly resilient to temperature fluctuations and can survive in both hot and cold environments. Terrain. Rats are highly adaptable to different types of terrain, including urban areas, agricultural fields, forests, grasslands, and wetlands. They can burrow underground in soil or live in above-ground structures such as buildings, nests, or burrows. Water sources. Access to water is essential for rats, so habitats near rivers, streams, lakes, or human-made water sources like sewage systems or leaking pipes are favorable. Food availability. Rats are opportunistic feeders that can consume a wide variety of food, including grains, fruits, vegetables, insects, garbage, and even animal carcasses. They thrive in environments with abundant food sources, such as agricultural fields, garbage dumps, and human settlements. Biotic factors. Predators. Despite being prolific breeders, rats have many natural predators, including birds of prey, carnivorous mammals, snakes, and even larger rodents. The presence of predators can influence rats' behaviors and habitat selection. Competition. Rats often compete with other rodents, such as mice, squirrels, and other rat species, for food and shelter resources. The level of competition can influence their distribution and abundance within a particular habitat. Parasites and diseases. Rats can carry various parasites and diseases, including fleas, ticks, lice, and pathogens such as bacteria responsible for leptospirosis. The presence of these parasites and diseases can impact health and survival of rats and other organisms within their habitat. How do rats fit into a food chain of the ecosystem? Primary consumers. Rats are primarily herbivores and omnivores, consuming a wide variety of plant matter, grains, fruits, and seeds. As primary consumers, they play a crucial role in regulating plant populations within ecosystems. By consuming seeds and fruits, they can influence plant distribution and diversity. Secondary consumers. Rats also consume insects, small invertebrates, and occasionally other small vertebrates. By feeding on these organisms, they act as secondary consumers within the food chain. They help control insect populations and contribute to nutrient cycling by consuming and recycling organic matter. Prey. Rats are an important food source for various predators within the ecosystem. Birds of prey, such as owls, hawks, and eagles, as well as carnivorous mammals like foxes, coyotes, and domestic cats, often hunt and consume rats. Snakes and larger rodents also prey on rats. As prey, rats contribute to the energy flow within the ecosystem, sustaining populations of their predators. Scavengers. Rats are opportunistic feeders and will scavenge on carrion and organic waste. By consuming dead animals and organic debris, they contribute to the decomposition process by breaking down organic matter and returning nutrients to the soil. Competition. Rats compete with other herbivores and omnivores for food and resources within their ecosystem. This competition can influence the distribution and abundance of other species within the community, affecting the overall structure and dynamics of the ecosystem. Rats' mating patterns and behaviors. Rats are promiscuous, meaning they have multiple partners during the breeding system. They involve themselves in polygamy, which means dominant males have multiple female partners. However, they can also involve themselves in monogamy, meaning a male and female rat have a long-term bond and remain together to raise the offspring. They can often engage in courtship to attract females. They have synchronized estrus, meaning their estrus cycle is during the same time, which means a bunch of babies are born in the same time. Nest building. They build nests. Parental care. Sometimes male and females can participate in parental care. The digestive system. The digestive system is used to digest food. The mouth is where digestion begins and where food is inserted. After swallowing, the food moves to the esophagus in order to get to the stomach. The stomach uses mechanical and chemical digestion to break food down further. After that, food then passes into the small intestines via the pyloric sphincter. Digestion continues and nutrient absorption occurs via the intestinal villi, which line the inner surface of the intestines. The pancreas releases digestive enzymes into the small intestines that break down carbohydrates and proteins. In the liver, it produces bile, which contains enzymes that break down fats. The large intestines contains a special area called the cecum, which specializes in breaking down plant material, primarily responsible for absorption of water.
Digestive system. Frogs have a simple digestive system. It includes the mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, then the cloaca. Frogs are mainly carnivores, and most of their diet consists of eating insects and small invertebrates. Since a frog only has teeth in its upper jaw, its stomach is what breaks down the food. Some similarities between the frog and rat. After examining both of their digestive system, both frogs and rats have a mouth, esophagus, a stomach, a large and small intestine, and a rectum. The order for digestion is also the same for both rats and frogs.
The excretory and reproductive system. In the excretory system, it involves the kidneys, a pair of organs that filter blood and produce urine, ureters, a pair of tubes that connect the kidneys and bladder, the bladder, which stores urine, the urethra, which urine travels along this tube to exit the body, and then for the reproductive system, it involves the testes, which produce sperm, the epididymis, which stores the sperm, the vas deferens, where the tube that sperm travels down to reach the penis, the prostate, which produces a fluid that nourishes and protects sperm, the penis, which pushes urine and semen through the urethra, the ovaries, which produce eggs, the oviducts, ducts that connect ovaries and the uterus, which receives eggs and support the development of growing embryos, the vagina, which serves as the birth canal and is also the oviduct that accepts sperm during mating.
Excretory and reproductive systems. Frogs Female frogs have ovaries that make eggs. In frog, fertilization happens outside the frog's body and usually in water, but this depends on the species of frog. Frogs have cloacas or a urinary bladder and have a pair of kidneys. Some similarities between the frog and rat. Both rats and frogs have paired reproductive organs, either testes or ovaries, that are responsible for producing sperm or eggs. Both species also have kidneys that filter metabolic waste from blood and make urine.
The respiratory system. The rat's respiratory system is mainly involved in the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. The trachea is the tube that connects the larynx to the bronchi of the lungs. The bronchi divides further into smaller branches called bronchioles. The bronchioles carry the air to terminal air sacs called alveoli. The lungs are major respiratory organs that expand and fill with air on inhale and deflate on exhale. The diaphragm is the major breathing muscle. It contracts and pulls down, causing air to rush into the lungs on inhale, and relaxes and moves up on an exhale, pushing air out of the lungs.
Nervous system. The frog's nervous system consists of the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system includes the brain and spinal cord. The brain consists of the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. The spinal cord goes from the brain down the back. The peripheral nervous system consists of nerves that transmit sensory information from the environment.
The nervous system. Listed on the slide is the major parts of the brain of a rat and the whole nervous system. The brain is part of the CNS and is the primary organ that controls movement, muscular contraction, respiration, digestion, and sensory input. The major parts of the brain include the cerebral hemisphere, olfactory bulb, cerebellum, and the medulla. Neurons are the basic working unit of the brain. It transmits information to other cells. The spinal cord is the main pathway to and from the brain. Nerves are part of the PNS. They are specialized fiber bundles that transmit electrical impulses. Eyes contain receptors that are stimulated by light and send nerve impulses to the brain that are processed as visual information. Ears capture sound and vibrations and channel them to a set of inner ear bones. Whiskers are sensitive, long hairs that grow from the rat's cheeks, chins, and eyebrows. A rat perceives its immediate surroundings through its whiskers.
The musculoskeletal system of the frog consists of the skeleton, muscles, joints, and connective tissue. The skeleton is made up of bones and cartilage and supports the body and serves as an attachment point for muscles. The muscles, a frog has three main muscle types: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. Skeletal muscles are responsible for voluntary movements and are attached to bones by tendons. Cardiac muscles make up the heart and pump blood through the frog's body. Smooth muscles are found in organs like the digestive tract and control involuntary movements. Joints simply allow for movement and enable bending in one direction. Connective tissues connect to bones and provide stability to joints. Some similarities: both rats and frogs have an internal skeleton composed of bones and cartilage and muscles that are responsible for voluntary and involuntary movements. Some differences are the rat has ball joint limbs in the hip and shoulders, and frogs do not.
The nervous system. Listed on the slide is the major parts of the brain of a rat and the whole nervous system. The brain is part of the CNS and is the primary organ that controls movement, muscular contraction, respiration, digestion, and sensory input. The major parts of the brain include the cerebral hemisphere, olfactory bulb, cerebellum, and the medulla. Neurons are the basic working unit of the brain. It transmits information to other cells. The spinal cord is the main pathway to and from the brain. Nerves are part of the PNS. They are specialized fiber bundles that transmit electrical impulses. Eyes contain receptors that are stimulated by light and send nerve impulses to the brain that are processed as visual information. Ears capture sound and vibrations and channel them to a set of inner ear bones. Whiskers are sensitive, long hairs that grow from the rat's cheeks, chins, and eyebrows. A rat perceives its immediate surroundings through its whiskers.
Now, in terms of the structures these animals share, they are rather similar in structure because they're both chordates. So they have their backbones, they have their similar systems. They're both tetrapods. They have tails, both of them. They're a segmented body. They go head, body, and then tail. But they're also kind of unique. The rats keep their tail into adulthood. Frogs have a much longer and more versatile tongue. Their skin is different. Rats have fur. Rats have a sort of more closed system for breathing because the oxygen needs to go inhale through the nose to go to their lungs. And then also rats have an internal breathing system as opposed to frogs. And if you actually look at the phylogenetic tree, we see that these animals shared a common ancestor about 340 million years ago. They're both tetrapods, and then the frogs branched out first as amphibians. The amphibians branched out, and then the frogs developed off of that. And rats came about much later with mammals.